It begins again. Welcome back, my friends, as we journey forward. New lands, new countries, undiscovered countries in the mind and in the external world. As they say, surrealism is where inner space and external reality meet and fuse. J.G. Ballard, of course. Artist Journal, October 24th, 2025, broadcasting from the non-space of the mind. My name is Adrian Pocobelli. And checking out Art Basel, it is Paris Art Week here. And it's quite interesting. It is quite interesting, particularly when you consider works like this. I mean, for those that are neck deep in the digital world, and I'd say a pretty small group. I mean, you go to shows out here that are, blockchain art related, which doesn't encompass, of course, all the digital. But you go out to these things and you realize it's a pretty small world, interestingly. However, then you see the Art Basel website where they're highlighting, I think it's William Mapin. And then you see, it seems, and when you go to the show, at the Grand Palais here at Art Basel Paris, it's conspicuously lacking the digital. It's almost like this presence which hovers over the whole fair. And it's quite interesting. Very briefly, I was talking to a gallerist, a friend of a friend, and he was saying, I was like, and what about, I was telling him how I was kind of curious to hear about people's digital programs. And it was interesting. He saw digital as competition. And I was trying to tell him that really it should just be another, aspect, your digital program, rather than seeing it as competition. But then it became the issue of, the classic issue, which is visual language, this education issue, I would argue. So it's all very interesting. So all to say, the final kind of thoughts on the fair, for the record, since this is a journal, it was a really high quality bunch of art. It was a high quality fair, probably the highest quality fair I'd ever been to. And what I mean by that is, first of all, the space is beautiful, but that's secondary. The works were beautiful. There were a lot of amazing booths. There was a lot of amazing art. And so from a quality perspective, expectations were met. But weirdly, when you take a step back and you think of the entire show and you think of the world, my thought was, I felt like it hadn't met the moment, though. It was really nice art. It was kind of like the best you could hope for and I say this, I don't say it pejoratively, from the traditional art world, from the regular art world, from the contemporary art world. It was a really good show. But then when you take a step back and you just think to yourself, I'm not sure it met the moment, interestingly. So kind of a mixed review over here, and met a lot of interesting people, blockchain and otherwise. So it's been fascinating. So it continues here. So let's begin. It's a gigantic show. Of course, it's been a couple of weeks. The moving has been intense. I had literally was on a plane last Friday, so couldn't do a show. I was tired of saying I can't do a show, so I'll do it when I do it, is sort of how I am here. So let's begin. So I believe this is Waffles. It's hard to imagine anybody else doing this. I'm not even sure what he is calling himself, if indeed, and it is just an anonymous account here on Tea, a one of one, and I believe this sold. This was for 33, it was transferred, and then it was sold for 3,300 Tezos. So nice work. It's hard to imagine anybody else doing this work here. And let's just bring it up large here. Let's put on the music. And apologies if there's an echo here. Okay, good. Apologies if there's an echo. If there is a big one, please let me know. I don't know how to solve it, actually. But just to give you a sense. So pretty cool. And visually arresting. And one can't help, was that the entire, I think that's the entire audio, fabulously. And one can't help when you're walking through these fairs and you just imagine, what if this was on a huge screen? So it was interesting. It was very interesting. So let's continue here. There's actually quite a lot to get through. Make sure it's not too loud. Same account. It's hard to imagine this is anybody else. Some of these, they're even signed, as you can see here, as Drupal in the bottom right. And in a sense, like I was thinking to myself as I was thinking about what to start with, and yeah, I could have started with, you know, I was tempted to start with the internet, as we'll see, this brilliant person who managed to turn internet websites where they removed everything but the ads. A brilliant idea. We're going to see that in a second. But as I was making this decision, I thought to myself of David Hickey, the famous, now deceased art historian out of Texas, and that great line that I'll never forget him. I've mentioned it here many times before, discussing Robert Rauschenberg, as he said, undeniable is undenied. And that is what I saw in this gorgeous, emotive, you know, mysterious digital painting here. It kind of looks like two big brush strokes, doesn't it? That are masked. But done, and then they look like they're talking to each other, so who knows? So here is another one. And again, the inimitable Hasdrubal waffle here. Here's another one, just sensational color. And audio. So fabulous canvases here. And again, you put the audio with this, you just wonder to yourself. I mean, we were mentioning this with the Kurt Hustle Collective. I think Layla over at Verse was also saying you could just imagine this stuff at a big art fair. So it's quite interesting, again, as you see, you know, one of the beautiful things, if you've never been to these art fairs, you have to go at some point because there's something to be said for, you know, seeing in person what's happening on the front lines, right? It's not just about the social. It's also about just seeing for yourself with your own eyes and experiencing this is what is being presented. This is, you know, fabulous. This is fabulous. Almost kind of underground residence kind of vibe. Almost looks like E.T. there. So really out of left field here. Too much fun. And I think just being transferred over. Three minutes and 12 seconds. Pretty nice music too. Apologies to the artist for the audio skipping through. Anyways, let's run through this. We have a few more here. So putting out, I'm actually going to mute that for the neighbors here so we can continue to do our show here. But beautiful. Beautiful work here and edgy works. Another gorgeous one. This is also on Taya. Some are editions of one. That first one was an edition of one. Most of them are editions of 5 or 6. So fabulous work here. And one more. Let's see. And there you go. And some Chinese writing, perhaps. This kind of looks like E.T. Untitled Metempsychosis, which I believe is reincarnation. And perhaps that's a clue into what's going on here with these different ETs. And there's Hasdrubal's sign there in the bottom right. So wonderful to see. I wasn't sure. I hadn't seen Hasdrubal's work for a while, but it actually has been released last month. I completely missed it. So good to know. So coming up Monday, I'm very pleased to Pocobelli Collection is putting on One Bit Horror. It's going to be a different kind of show in the sense that it's going to be using works from the past. There's going to be there should be a few new works. I have a couple of artists that are contributing some new works, but that's not the overall point of the show. That's more for fun, and that'll be cool. But really, it's about presenting this pixel art horror genre and just kind of exploring it and telling a story, so to speak, curatorially about it, and at least attempting to. So that is on Monday. In a sense, you don't miss. There will be some new works there. So in a sense, you should be ready. I think it'll be Monday at 4 p.m. Central European time, which might not be 10. That might be 11 Eastern because of the time change. There's 2 weeks a year where the time change is only 5 hours rather than 6. Anyways, let's look at the. Are we back to hipster irony? Yes, wonderful. Let's take a look at the comments on last show. Taking a look at VVV, of course, and we're going to see some more commentary. The Denirus, the tokenized art space. I like that approach. Right, referring to art news, referring to the NFT space as the tokenized art space. You continue to see this running away from the word NFT. You hear art on the blockchain more often too, something I've commented on many times. And it's even interesting, even the Taschen book on NFTs, the new version. The first version had on NFTs, I think it was like white on blue, if I'm not mistaken. The second edition is a whole bunch of numbers and letters, and then you have to look really close. And then if you look really close, you can see, oh, it says on NFTs. You wonder if that was done on purpose. So anyways, there does seem to be a collective, not entirely universal, but a running away from the term NFT to a certain degree. I think that's probably a good idea. Yudo XYZ GM, great to hear from you. Huge artist on the blockchain there and on X. Great to hear from you, Yudo. Pixel Lord, it looks like I've been making gay NFTs all my NFT career then. Nice. And I think we're going to see one in the X comments. So let's bring those up here. So pretty big response, 18,000 views. So thank you for the support from everybody, including Descartes.io. Go check out their platform. Thank you for sponsoring. Cow. So I think so we're hearing from a few kind of in the VVV or the gay NFT as it is called community. And I believe this is one of the members of that community. Hey, Poco, you can read a lot of the stories, timeline, and concepts here. So it was the first show where we were exploring what is going on VVV. And there's quite a few tabs I had on it. We have some more, actually, and I'm kind of incorporating it into the show from an editorial perspective. It's interesting work, so let's just put it in. And it's kind of interesting to see where it shows up. I put it in with painting, digital painting. Let's continue. The last article by Mark Antony and Lorando Mort is very illustrative, will allow you to corroborate many of the stuff that happened. So before Parker's eruption in the scene. So what I'm learning, the more I learn about this scene, and thank you for posting this, Cal, is factions might be too strong of a word, but it doesn't seem to be one blob. It seems to be 2 or 3 blobs of scenes from what I can tell. And I kind of love not knowing anything about it to a certain degree, because I feel like I can come here and comment on it with a certain degree of objectivity. And because I haven't been involved in it, I can do it I'm not emotionally invested in it. And I think that's healthy as far as just having discussions about it. Of course, I need to learn, and thank you for posting this again. In order to speak about it, I have to keep learning about it, and I am slowly, but it's actually incredibly complex. So I haven't actually looked at this yet, but thank you for posting this, and I will. It has been very busy, as you can imagine, but thank you for posting this, and I will read this. And the whole schizocollage gay NFTs. Check out last show if you want kind of an in-depth first look, so to speak. And continuing on, Son of Lost G, being immersed in the avant-gay scene for the past few weeks. What you're seeing is an evolution in NFT, PFP, chain culture, and artistic expression. Broad statement, I know, but not enough space to communicate fully here. I've shared a ton of writing as I find it all fascinating. Start here on the term avant-garde itself. Several articles going into the lore and foundational collections artists here. So again, thank you everyone for posting this. And I'm slowly, figuring this out. I'm kind of a slow burn when it comes to learning about these things and forming judgments. And so I'm just going at it open-mindedly, and I'm kind of not in a rush, in a sense. And I'm excited, actually, about this whole thing. I think it's fresh. I think it's interesting. I think it's provocative in a good way. So thank you for sharing that. I will take a look. El Barba, Roja, Blue Check. These are starting to be hands down the best recaps of artwork in our community. Take a watch. Well, thank you. As a matter of fact, I met El Barba actually at a show, at an opening the other day. Actually twice, at 2 openings. So hilarious. Small world. Interestingly. Very small. Ranixtier, awesome to hear from you. Cool episode. Great to hear from Ranixtier. Macbeth, so good. So many great insights. Thank you. Thank you very much. Minong, if and ye want to learn something of the lore behind avant-garde and VVV, let me know. So I have to say, and someone actually reached out, I had a couple of calls, actually, and someone donated, a few hours of their time. So I am getting to know it. It is quite complex. So it's interesting. It's all interesting. I mean, so I think this will come out over time as I incorporated it into our discussion here. Because it's been going on, I think, since 2022, from my understanding. And I guess just further on that, I mean, part of what seems to be going on with VVV is a kind of, when the profile picture thing happened, the PFP trend, let's call it in 2021 with NFTs and then, and all the speculation, as far as I understand the story that's starting to be pieced together in my head, is contemporary artists, like from the trad art scene, were seeing what was happening and then kind of going, almost using that technical device and then subverting it and putting it towards their own ends, which is part of what we're seeing with these kind of edgy aesthetics, as we're going to actually we have an article on it, on the vulgar image, so to speak, which we're going to take a look at here. And so that seems to be part of what's going on here. And there's an irony in this, in the sense that a lot of us in the, who are dealing with digital art on the blockchain have been kind of wondering, when are the trad art people going to kind of jump on the bandwagon here and get more involved? What's taking so long? And perhaps it seems that at least there's a fair amount, from what we can tell, from what I'm starting to discover, perhaps, that are already involved, but they're in this kind of more VVV scene. Interestingly, seemingly. Everything is seemingly here. A broken aesthetic. I don't know, the way that some of these collections layer culture specifically in a PFP context is what does it for me. There's definitely been mimetic art, and sure, they exist in a lineage or networked art, internet art, or whatever. Yeah, beautifully put, actually. But the context around these works and the kind of super contemporary identity, play, and exploration happening here feels incredibly exciting. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, what was described to me, what's interesting about VVV, like what I first thought was happening, and I think it does happen to a certain degree, is they were using the layering technology of hash lips, and a very powerful layering program, right? And I had been thinking about this for years, frankly. It was, why are people just doing PFPs with this? Why not do, because layering's, it's kind of a huge deal in digital art, I would argue, in terms of technical, a way of making art, and so here you have, each folder can have 10 different works, and then it just starts randomly combining them all, and all of a sudden you have 1,500 works, and then you can start to edit and say, okay, that one, not that one, as they do with PFP collections. What's interesting about some of the VVV people is they stick with the profile, the PFP, but it's much more abstracted. Whereas other collections, you'll see it's just like the PFP and profile picture, for those that don't know, is kind of thrown out the window, which is kind of more my kind of style, because I don't really care about the PFP to a certain degree just as personally. As an artist, I think it's interesting. It's kind of a play on the portrait, right? But I'm not but I do find layering and this layering technology to be incredibly powerful. So let's continue. And I agree, so it's the layering for me, and it's a simple thing, but the ability to put these variables in and then come out with 1,500 works kind of in a few minutes, once you have good variables, that's incredibly powerful, kind of scarily powerful. And that I find interesting. Let's continue. I also think that what feels like a concerted push, PSYOP, and it's interesting. So it's been 2 weeks since I've done the show. We were talking about how it almost feels like this is a big marketing push that's going for whatever this scene. It's kind of quieted down in the last week, I would argue. I also think what feels like a concerted push or PSYOP is actually the result of a scene that's been able to incubate for a long time due to various frictions. Hard to read from an outside perspective, existing away from the established art chains, and even the language around it, which you touched on. Right, all the coded language. Being found in such a fully developed state, it does sound like this has been incubating for years. Interestingly, I am still back to, it is weird how the aesthetic, there is a similarity in not all of them, but oftentimes in the aesthetics between the collections, which is interesting. I'm not sure what to make of that. I think it's an opportunity, frankly, for people who are just playing around with the technology and going, oh, let's just do something completely different. I mean, layering's powerful. Finding a whole scene that's so rich and fully formed is really compelling, hence the amount of posts on the timeline, I guess. Indeed, there was a lot, but it has actually, interestingly, it's kind of drawn back a little bit, I would argue. Maybe it's the Art Basel stuff. I don't know. Sign, thank you. We have more works by Sign. Super interesting artist. I think he uses AI, which makes sense. Andrea Balestrero, a lot to study. Indeed. Always in this scene, it's pretty amazing how fresh it remains here, 3 years later. Austin, great episode, Poco. Always articulating the madness to a T. Thank you, Austin. Great to hear from you. Great artworks on chain from Austin. Nicholas Dietrich, fascinating episode, Adrian. So much going on. Thanks for the mention. You're welcome, my friend. And we have a couple of works in progress from Nicholas coming up. Area, awesome episode, Adrian. Thank you. Great to hear. Glad you guys liked it. 1,000 Lands, great episode. Hope you're settling into your new digs. Wow, that restoration really pops. The restoration. Oh, yes. Who was that? Fra Angelico? I think it might pop too much, as the emojis here might be saying. Hilarious. Iteration, great piece by Sinusoid. Yeah, who we started with, Sinusoidal Snail. Nice to see her featured. Great to hear. Iteration, Jan Lucas Magone, The Fresh Journal, Dan Svitar, great to hear from you. And Cousin Humper, Sol, look, and there, awesome. These are great. So it's quite interesting. I love that. I have to say, I tried to be just kind of fair to what I saw happening here. And I have to say, I was very impressed with the community. How many people kind of reached out and just comments like this who were not offended or anything. Who are just hey, cool. People are talking about this and just trying to make sense of it. I was really impressed in that regard. Makes me bullish on the gay NFT community. Excellent show again, Poco, Nathan Sonic. On the name gay NFTs, perhaps not hipsterism, more like anti-establishment. Yeah, and the way it was kind of, as I asked one of the people I was talking to, I was there almost seems to be a 4chan sort of vibe that's coming from this. And I think of this whole kind of scene, which is kind of politically incorrect and not worrying about it, and just this kind of, again, edgy, again, 4chan, is pretty edgy. I guess you'd call them message boards. Perhaps not hipsterism, more like anti-establishment. Many of these artists are already outsiders. Their art confusing to the establishment. The name makes it difficult for the establishment to get in. It has to be. Yeah, so interesting. Yeah, I mean, what's interesting about the gay NFT thing is the more you're around it, the easier you just start calling it that, and you don't really think about it. But at the start, when you feel like, should I be calling it this? You know. Let's continue. David Lockhart, the whole NFT thing is tired. Calling it gay NFT is even more of a yawn. Restoration in the wrong hands of another artwork. I love authenticity, but if it's yellowing varnish that can be corrected, it's okay, but not a whole makeover. Do a digital side-by-side display instead. That's an excellent point. That is a very interesting point. Should they be restoring at all? I'm sure there's a whole, faction of scholars who say no. That is and why not just do a reproduction beside it? That is a super interesting point, David Lockhart. Thank you for the comment. Kalima Fuscovirans, solid. Great to hear from you. Cool. So all sorts of people, I suspect from the Solana, Nightcore and everything. So I'm loving it. I'm loving to hear from you from that community. S404, Mo SHI2, great to hear from you. I think we have a work from Mo this episode. Nathan Sonic, also Kim Asendorf, Sabotage. So I'm still confused and not sure if the JPEG artifacts are on purpose or not. Thank you for posting that. Asal, yay, as good as always, congrats, XYZ. So thank you for the comments. So we've made it through the comments. How are we doing here? 26 minutes. Art news, when everything becomes collectible, how Gen Z is redefining art ownership. And it is still highlighted here. Excellent. Just a little area I wanted to highlight. While demand for paintings and sculptures held steady year over year, and I think this is for Gen X or millennials, interest in most other categories, works on paper, prints, and photography declined. That's interesting. Photography declined. The lone exception was digital art. 23% of collectors planning to buy this year hope to acquire a digital work, up from 19% in 2024 and climbing to 26% among Gen Z collectors. Yes, it's going to be interesting what happens here. I kind of, I've never even been to Art Basel before. But I kind of felt like, what I'm wondering to myself, is this the last Art Basel where there won't be, apparently the digital art tour was canceled because there wasn't enough digital artworks at the fair, and I hardly saw any. I think I saw a couple of screens, and then there's the Samsung display, which had like 4 or 5, but that was more just about Samsung. And they were all TV 16:9, so I didn't see a huge amount of innovation there. So interesting. In collections overall, digital works now represent an average 13% share, rebounding sharply from 3% in 2024, thanks to a renewed interest in generative and AI-based art. I wonder if that's all it is generative and AI-based art, and not what we like to call here art on the blockchain, people who are not necessarily using blockchain as a medium, but simply using it as a vehicle to put their, images. So pretty interesting. Let's continue. Sanso. Our space is in dire need of sense-making as there continues to be a steady drumbeat of new art being hyped up regularly until the next release is hyped. It has gotten out of control. I do agree. I'm very happy with the one-bit horror show that I'm doing, that it's basically based on previous works. There's going to be some works there that are new. It's almost like for the people that do want to buy something. But that's not the main thing. And I totally agree with this in the sense that context needs to be created here on what's already been done. And significance, what matters here. But there are a few patrons for such criticism. I wonder about that because it's just hardly done. And the problem is if people are overwriting, then nobody wants to read that anyway, as we're going to see here in a second. I think about this often as great art fails to gain purchase. Yeah, it's interesting. And you have to say, as a collector of digital art, there's so much being released. Do all of these releases, in a sense, weirdly diminish the value of, the work in general? Because there's just so much of it out there that does your collection become a little less essential over time? So we were mentioning this. So Spike, of course, when I first went to Berlin, I'd go to Spike talks. Probably need to speed up here in case my computer crashes on us. The Vulgar Image. So this is by Dean Kissick, a prominent writer. AI is co-spawning a visual culture beyond any imagination. Will an overthrow of good taste revest pictures with their mysterious power, or are we chasing our machines into pastiche hell? So There is a Beeple, but you see also here, there is some work by VVV. So we can't, but you see this notion of tasteless, right? And I was describing this as nihilism. It's been, one of the people I talked to who's been involved in that scene actually said it's not nihilistic, it's actually hopeful, the aesthetic, right? So it's quite interesting. But illegible, the vulgar image, as Dean calls it. Now, as Dean Kissick calls it, here's Mafella, right? So this is from that scene. Dumb, fake, right? So it's an interesting thing. I brought up ChatGPT to summarize it because it's I'm kind of back to these art things, and I'm not even sure if sometimes they're overwritten. Here's a concise summary, quick points of the article. Kissick argues that we're inundated by polished, monotonous beauty and uniformly curated images. So much so that a reaction is already underway, the rise of what he calls the vulgar image. It is interesting. I mean, this freshness that we describe the VVV scene with, I think you could argue is a sense that, it's kind of like when we see what I and other people call challenging art. At first, it's hard, but then you love it even more because almost it was hard to get to, but then all of a sudden, and I think we see a similar sort of experience with VVVs, to overgeneralize because it's a whole bunch of different artists, but the overall aesthetic, which I think is partly being alluded to in this article. The vulgar image is defined by several interlocking characteristics: tastelessness, illegibility, dumbed-downness, fakery, grotesque information. We're seeing this in the brain rot. Remember that? And is brain rot separate from this? Is this all part of one thing? Is this a generational thing? Examples cited include meme culture, AI-generated monsters, dystopian social media visuals, deformed digital avatars, and bizarre internet cultural phenomena. For instance, the monsters on Instagram, the NFT subculture Mafella, AI-generated figure Loab. The essay situates these phenomena as a backlash or evolution of aesthetics. When good taste and refinement become excessive and bland, the ugly, grotesque, and absurd image as new modes of visual expression. You know what I think it has going for it more than anything is the outrageousness of it. It does have a how dare you present this as art sort of thing to the person that's never seen it before. You're going to say this, ugly image, quote unquote, is like art, and I'd almost say that's the thing that it has going maybe most for it, is this kind of outrage, because how do you outrage today? It's not the easiest thing to do. And then so by pushing quote unquote ugly art and then doing it, what it also has is there's a consistency to it. So which I think is interesting. Because then the consistency gives a kind of credibility to it, I would argue, because then you go, well, maybe something's going on here. We're seeing visual consistency between these different collections. Is this like a ugly impressionism kind of scene, so to speak? Like the equivalent of an impressionism when it was out in the it was probably considered ugly too, although it's quite beautiful. All right, so interesting. Rather than striving to represent reality or to offer meaningful content, the vulgar image revels in its artificiality, excess, deformation, and transformation, and reflects the digital architecture of our time: algorithmic, layered, iterative, machine-enabled. Sort of where I personally, as an artist, start to fork from this is I still do consider it in my own world somewhat nihilistic. I can see the excitement around it, but because I think you can make beautiful work, actually, with these tools. And I think you can comment on the culture with beauty, rather than this almost vulgarity, quote unquote, as Dean Kissick calls it, if I'm understanding the argument correctly. So that's all I would say. In a sense, I don't see it as necessary going down this path, because I think there's all sorts of beauties that haven't been frankly discovered, that can still be discovered. And then you have to ask, like, as we even see the fad almost kind of fade, maybe fad's the wrong word, But as we see it fade from the timeline a little bit in 1 week, in a couple of weeks, in the last week, you have to ask, well, if it's fading already, like, is that a result of the art? Just an open question, right? As fresh as it might seem, because, okay, this is different. Finally, there's a historical dimension. The grotesque and monstrous in art has long been folk art or marginal art traditions. Bosch's hell scenes are evoked. The current digital version is a continuation, transformation by a machine media culture. Now, this is a different, I find this is almost like a bait and switch argument in the sense that this is a content issue all of a sudden. It's like, oh, well, no, this is just ugly, this ugly art is monstrous and we can just go to Hieronymus Bosch. But that's a content issue. We're talking about aesthetics up until this point, and now all of a sudden it's like, oh no, it's just monstrous content, not monstrous quote unquote aesthetics. So I see this as a bait and switch. To me, this is intellectually inconsistent, this argument here. If ChatGPT is summarizing it correctly, which is an open question. Kissick suggests that these images, despite or because of their ugliness and meaninglessness, might reclaim some of the mystery and power that traditional beautiful images have lost in the over-designed, over-refined contemporary world. An interesting argument. You could argue that advertising to a certain degree, I mean, the pop artists co-opted, where else, and what's the difference? You see a beautiful ad and you go, that's art. You look at a Gucci ad or, you see them on the street here, a Burberry ad, and you go, that's pretty beautiful, right? It's art, right? But I come from a different sort of perspective here that ultimately the difference between art and design is the irrational component, the poetic element. Whereas, a billboard has a purpose, a function. The art, it also has a function, but it's of a different nature. It has a poetic function. It's speaking along different kind of neurons, so to speak. So, interesting, provocative discussion here. Also, Dean Kissick, aesthetics weren't important anymore. A very good and pithy observation by Catherine Horan. We're post-aesthetics now. So, these things, again, sometimes this feels like art intellectualism getting ahead of itself, and that all of a sudden we're not humans anymore, and so I would, to me, it's sort of like a hold your horses intellectually speaking here. Let's see, most fashion ads were being created by people who'd gotten their start in magazines or graphic designs. They had an understanding of aesthetics of what made a good image. That system worked extremely well for a century until the last decade or so when fashion brands belatedly grasped that aesthetics weren't important anymore, not in the phone age. And I go, is that true? When I see the beautiful ads here, are aesthetics really not important anymore? And define aesthetics. I mean, in a sense, is the ugly image, quote unquote, aesthetic now? So I guess it's a define your terms type thing. It was fluency with the digital world and few traditional art directors had it, but Verderi, coming from advertising, did. So again, there's a lot of I've seen, and Charlotte, I think Fang had when I see these over-intellectualized discussions, my perspective is we can hardly know anything. And it's very hard for us. I'm a very skeptic. That's what makes me basically somewhat, to a certain degree, a Platonist. I'm very skeptical on what we can know. So when all of a sudden there's ideas here and ideas there, and then it's kind of like this cloud of ideas, but nothing, you're never really sure what it means, it becomes, for all intents and purposes, from my own perspective, meaningless. Because it's like, what are we talking about? What are we establishing? And even this, I'm not sure we're really getting anything from this. So all very interesting ideas nonetheless. This is what I was tempted to start with this. Maybe it wasn't beautiful enough, interestingly, but brilliant indeed. Mika Ben Ammar, 1.1 million views. I made a Chrome extension that hides all website content except ads. This is quite brilliant, isn't it? So I've always been a big fan. I have a ton of internet ads in my work, so I kind of love this. Very cool. Shirley Preston, who of course I follow, that is a glitch on X. Artists aren't here because of Tezos. Tezos is here because of the artists. Indeed. Important to remember here. And also, yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, I was talking to people, I actually met some people from Tezos. I was like, because I want people to know who might be wondering, like, I wasn't invited to the Berlin Tezos thing. And I just want people to know, I mentioned that because I don't want people to think I said no. So I read this, Baking Benjamins, a devastating loss for Tezos. So this is someone who is working on the Kukai wallet. It's rare to get devs get involved enough to take care and work towards bettering Tezos as a whole. And this person was quite bitter, Simon McLaughlin. I spent the last 5 years stressed and frustrated with various aspects of how it works. So currently fighting fires, maybe that was the Kukai team rather than Tezos, so not sure. But this person is done. And apparently they're kind of an important developer. Mech.txt, who of course I follow. Tezos needs to avoid perhaps another brain drain, spot and notice talent and potential builders in the roots quicker, faster, and foster and offer support swiftly. We're graced by the natural, non-expedient nature of the chain, which makes new people come here are often very peculiar and idiosyncratic in its best terms. So it's interesting. Just check the Tezos Foundation's latest report. The good news, their treasury is no longer worth more than the market cap itself. The bad news, that's entirely because they spent $50 million in the first half of 2025 on what? Who knows? And the values are now equal. It's interesting. Like, it does seem like, as I pontificate and speculate here, it does seem like Object sure has a big budget with all the hiring, the redesign, all of the events and everything. It does seem, and maybe this is to actually give Tezos some credit. It seems like they're finally recognizing the importance of the art on the chain. I don't know how much money. That's a lot of money, though. And I don't know if any of that's, accurate. But I do wonder that to myself because I see a lot of development there on Object. Neurocolor. Remember that the revolution of crypto art was to empower more people to become artists and collectors and to unlock the potential of the native digital art market. By no means it was a cutting edge on concepts or aesthetics without discarding that it can occur rarely. Interesting take. But I think as, doing a screen first medium, we should expect it to be cutting edge. I would argue, as it being kind of the quote-unquote new medium. It's not new in the sense that digital art's been around for a long time, but screen first and being able to buy and sell screen first is a big deal, I would argue. And here, just some plotting. I'm going to have to speed up this episode here. So time to plot. I never get tired of seeing this, and I never stop being excited about trying it one day. A friend in Berlin who showed me plotting once, and the next time I'm there, I'm going to have to dial them up. Check this out. Element Lee. So here, very minimal, almost outrageously so, pixel art drawing, but then putting it on it actually looks like a laser engraving is what this looks like, but I'm not sure. Maybe it's just traced. And then you don't see the pixelation, interestingly. And look at that, just a straight line shapes. Element Lee, always interesting. And of course, Hermipe, Japanese pixel artist, I believe. Look at this. So who knows how they made this? Is that laser? I don't know. But it's pretty darn cool. Rendering those pixels like that. Here's Martin Bruce. Let me see if we can get... Here we go. Digital art and physical merge. Here, let's do this. Balancing each other through a cyclic randomness. The symbiosis weaves a dynamic patchwork where I construct, recycle, and operate across various media. Just a brilliant artist. And wait till you see the works by Martin Bruce here. And look at this. And on the synth. Look at this beautiful work of art here. I don't know if I've ever seen that one. That one's gorgeous. And while we're on that, there is a TR-1000 that Roland has put out. It's super expensive, unfortunately, but it sounds like finally they put out a new drum machine, and it has the 808 and the 909 in it. And all sorts of new features, so pretty cool there. As we finally make it to the art here, so Zwozo on Art of the Millennium. I'm not sure if Zwozo is I'm not sure if if they're just a guest or not, but congrats to Zwozo for getting on Art of the Millennium. So pretty cool work here. As we navigate here out of hibernation, this is an edition of 10. It's Tezos, and it is 50 Tezos each that you can buy now. So you can buy Tezos work on Art of the Millennium. And how cool is this? So this is part of a show, and I think it's Monochrome is the show. Circles in the Water, this was on Verse. Let's see if we can get this to play. I assume there's audio here. There is. Just awesome audio here. Awesome artwork. So that's looking good. Owned by Deggy D. How much does that go for? $311. Just a steal there. Can't Fight Alone. Zozo. And this was an edition of 10 that's on Object. It's a cool, looking like boxers or something. Someone punching, hilarious and gorgeous. How much were those selling for? 35 Tezos, super reasonable with the Tezos price being what it is. Here's Martin Bruce, who we're just seeing from Enter. Let me try and do this. And do this. Kind of a new setup here, so thank you for your patience. So just gorgeous work. The Enter button, it looks like from, and then just almost like curtains here, with these beautiful sampled brushes from Martin Bruce, one assumes sampled, and this cool little dog, always unpredictable, interestingly mirrored there. As we continue, here's another Martin Bruce. Test Drive series continues to evolve and will be soon formally presented on various platforms and exhibitions. For those that don't see Volume 1, link below. For those who did, Volume 2 will be reactivated. So returning to the Test Drive video game. This is a sensational series, as you can see here. From Martin Bruce, just a huge talent here on the blockchain. Worms on Candle. Again, when you go through, like imagine having this stuff at Art Basel, right? Could be exciting. So looking good here, or even the physicals, right? Edition of 20, and these are only 20 Tezos each, which is maybe $12. This is on X, perhaps a work in progress, perhaps not. We see Untitled, Microsoft Paint. Beautiful work here from Martin Bruce. Here is Nov 1914, Descanso Entre Palomas, and this is an edition of 6 for 50 Tezos. So cool landscape here, and not sure if this is, I think this is an original, interestingly. And the first 4 selling for 10 Tezos, or first 5. Here's another one. This is an edition of 1 going to Mr. Bezold. Actually, who sent me a really cool image. Actually, I need to show that next episode. And so here, just a gorgeous still life floral artwork that sold for 70 Tezos to Mr. Bezold. Here is another work by Nov 1914. Interesting composition, putting 4 works together. That is an edition of 4 for 60 Tezos. And one more, a basket, kind of an old theme, I believe, from Nov, and kind of a still life here as well. Interesting purple background. Here is Mishi Asu, Water and Wind 2, and so pretty nice piece here. Kind of a soothing work, edgy and challenging, and some interesting little drawings here. In the top and bottom, that is 8 Tezos, edition of 5. And here's Sign with a couple of new works. This is an edition of 1 for 300 Tezos. So again, I think this starts with AI and then is processed. Not sure. I'm not positive on that though. I think we have a, we have a GM-GN. This is a pretty cool one here too. 3,000 views. Pretty cool work out here. Here it is. I make art using early computing UIs and command line text as inputs. So I'm not sure what that means. Does that mean AI or does that mean like terminal? Not sure. Interesting work. It kind of feels like these are coming from AI, but I don't know. Continuing, La Delmas, in Spanish, title in Spanish, and just a cool work here. Super interesting artist, nice digital painting, as you can see. here, kind of not sure. Seems to have some sort of meaning in there that I'm not sure about. Edition of 13, 7 Tezos. Here's Uxine, apply now. So the classic McDonald's meme, courtesy of Uxine. And here is looking at probably their crypto chart, their investments, and applying now. Quite brilliant, actually. Very economic. Here is Zed. Where is the artist? Zed Laser, just right here. As you see, cool work here. This is on ordinals. So nice work from Zed Laser. Here's Enigmatris, 13,000 views, 75 retweets. Continuing with the ASCII and taking it in a pretty interesting direction here. And a little figure there underneath. Interesting composition, the moon. Here's Gregorio Zanardi. And continuing to do well. This is, I believe, oil and acrylic. So this is actually a physical. Really making progress here with this baseball player. Very beautiful painting that is on object. I'm not sure if you get the painting. And that sold for 300 Tezos. And continuing on, here's Lily Illo, AI artwork here. So, and this is called, maybe this is called Passion, not sure, but beautiful work. This is cool too, Womo by an artist I'd never seen before, YYYYY. So seeming like a bit of a video game thing, but pixelation at a diagonal. Not exactly sure what's going on here, but pretty interesting and cool textures. Video gamey. Some cool works by Scamra, as usual. Look at this. I really like where this is going, especially that nice pink there. And as well as the textures here in the green. It kind of has a nice balance of texture, detailed texture, and just flat, which I think gives a nice contrast even here. Gives that breathing space with this kind of, impressionistic pixelation, shall we call it? Ohio 1, Stable Diffusion. So this is, of course, this is an open edition, only a Tezos from Scamra. So interesting, kind of an abstract looking work, 19 minted here so far. Here's another one, Crickets. Again, we have that nice kind of flat gray contrasting with this very detailed, with these details. Here is another work, Good Afternoon, cool kind of representational, figurative work, I guess we'd say. And here is, I think this is Time, who of course I follow. Cool work. I like the combination of different styles here, or here you see kind of like a vertical paint stroke type look. Here you see flat. Here you see more of like, I don't know, it's almost like divisionism. And then here pixelations has turned in pretty nice work here. I think this is just on X. Did pretty well there. This is a really nice work by Yuri J. See if we can zoom in here. I got to be careful to not kill my hard drive here. So you see, almost has an impressionistic feel here, like a déjeuner sur l'herbe of sorts, or at least People in the Park. Kind of has an impressionistic vibe, doesn't it? What is it called? Bucolics. So yeah, kind of harkens back to maybe the 19th century. Wojak, Molehills Out of Mountains. Cool paintings from Wojak recently, incorporating some, what looks like a Safari browser into the works, very painterly, I think digital painting. And here is some works from VVV, Avant Art Representative. I think just posting works. I think this is a pretty famous series here out of that scene, but I'm not positive. It almost looks like a magic card with some painting over top and maybe a cross. Here's Tarlatte, never underestimate a $10 mint. So you see here, it is still the PFP. It was being kept here. Nice work here. Interesting work, kind of painterly. I thought this series was pretty cool too. Tajiba Pocket 3. As you see, different kinds of, I like the theme of just video game, portable video game controllers, and then doing a whole bunch of variations on that. I thought was pretty interesting. As we continue, Deepest Well, Doug's Plane. Interesting piece here from Deepest Well, I believe an AI artwork, kind of edgy work, edgy take on AI. Here's No Hygiene with more edginess. Is that Elon Musk? Is that a shark? Is that Nike shoes? Not even sure what it says. And another work by No Hygiene here with very cool, I don't know if that is some sort of kitchen knife here, with very cool mini versions of No Hygiene's work incorporated. So it continues to be new with No Hygiene. When you look at that head there, and there, of course, the classic angel, almost a signature. Here's Mumble Boy with cool work. Did it disappear? And let's leave it here. Think After Sleep. So nice work, 11 minted on Rodeo. And here's Guru Hyena with some interesting work here. This is posted on X. Actually, I think it's on Object. We have another work by them that's on Object. Or is this is on Rodeo. So as we see here. So I think that's the same artist. So pretty interesting work there. This was cool. Orkin Art Visions, 30th of October. So coming up on OpenSea. I have seen a couple of people at the fair here, or actually it was at a side event, playing with this kind of image facial recognition technology. This is a pretty nice take on it, using art history and making a very nice job of it. So that's pretty cool. I have a few of them here. Very nice, contrast between this traditional painting and very modern technology. So pretty cool, I have to say. This looks pretty great. So that's Orkin _art. Here's Turemza with a cool work, kind of a swordfish. Kind of looks like a collage, but with GIF elements with it. Almost kind of surreal looking. It almost looks like a surreal collage with kind of, but it moves. Proper Breakfast Before School by Ilya Bliznets and Don't Buy. So cool collab here. So interesting music. Not sure if that's AI or actual band. Cool collab. That is that from that work. And here's another one. Kind of more of just a take on, I think, modern technology here and how it is overwhelming the individual. This animation gets more relevant as time goes on. Cool work. Here is ZCNDE, and you gotta love that white background. There's something kind of, I want to say like antiseptic about the whole thing. Even the portrayal of the object here with that light blue and the dark blue. Very interesting. Interesting. Looks like a ledger is attached. Interesting. Encrypted. Cool work. Here is Jake Studios. We're only at an hour. This is fabulous. So new work here. It's, I think, Sovereign Gallery. Really cool gallery on Object. Duality of Mac, edition of 1, and that's 250 Tezos. Very cool curator. Here is Axstone, No Save Point. This is on Super Rare. So pretty cool, kind of classic, almost looks like a Commodore 64 with Axstone's kind of trademark illustration style. You see again these kind of video game elements like Super Mario and whatnot. Cool work. Has there been a bid? Let's activity. Oh no, that was done in August. Here is Burka Bayram with a work. This is on Taya. Very nice piece here. Very nice black and white illustration by Burka Bayram. Advice from a Caterpillar. You wonder if this is a Alice in Wonderland type thing. Took the hook. Yeah, it is. It is. The Caterpillar and Alice. Very cool work. Edition of 8. This is a pretty cool work here. This is also part of the no chrome or monochrome work on Art of the Millennium. Is this Tezos? This is 700, has a bit of 700 Tezos here. It was a cool subject. Let's see if we can get that right. It's kind of hard to, so let's see if we can do that. Yeah, there we go. Had a funny noise show headliner, CP26. So Chrome period 26. So kind of fun, no empty seats. And that is probably what a noise artist studio looks like these days. Interesting hair. So fun work from Sabato. Cool bricks in the background too. Here is Figments with RG Brain. Very nice piece here. I believe it's on Object, incorporating the brain into kind of this circuit board type of structure. Again, part of Figments, edition of 4, and that is transferred. Continuing on, Nicholas Sassoon, Screen Door, as we run through the rest of this episode here. Very cool work from Nicholas Sassoon. Of course, I follow Nicholas Sassoon as I follow Renato. Just pointless clicks. So cool pixel art here. This is what you're not seeing any of at Art Basel. Nicholas Dietrich, just new work in progress. This is looking great. So again, playing with a new color here with the blue. Also a gradient. Details of a new one coming soon. So this looks like both. Of course, I follow Nicholas. These both seem like kind of excerpts from the coming image. Here's Element Leaves. A cool kind of fall image here, or autumn, from Element Lee, about 4 or 5 colors. Bill Atkinson, done by Braindead. Can't remember who Bill Atkinson is, but love the portrait. What a cool portrait. And then sent off, rest in peace, so maybe someone who's passed away. Zenyan in the RGB. I thought this was quite interesting. Just a nice kind of minimal pixel art piece. Very cool. And here a couple by Tornado Rodriguez for Kant's show here. Cube de Kant. So cool video game, kind of Super Mario theme. Very nicely done. Kind of reminds you of those German expressionists. Excuse me, from the early 20th century. Interesting colors too here. And you can see the big video game blocks. Super interesting work. Here's Retro Manny, Sentinel Arturus. I picked one of these up. Cool work here from Retro Manny, Retro Man Arcade Pixel Vault, edition of 20. And some work by Haiti Rocket. Cool glitch ROM here, totally minimal. Looks like an abstract. Love the numbers incorporated in there too. Here's another one. Always has kind of a signature take on the glitch ROMs. Here's another work by Haiti Rocket in green and black. So perhaps this doesn't look like a glitch ROM. This looks like using a different software. It's called Move. And we have another work. The dollar bill now is in the recycling bin window. That is cycling. Just classic Haiti Rocket, edition of 6, called One. And one more, this is pretty cool too, also by Haiti Rocket. So taking old Windows 95 type icons and then repeating them with a basically kind of algorithm movement, so to speak. As we continue, here is Shepperton. Very nice abstract here. Love the text put inside here. The text almost becomes visual here, which I quite like, and gorgeous textures. That is a great piece. That is an edition of 30. It looks like it's sold out. It is. Great work. Fabulous. Ex-Mortal. I don't think we saw this one. Veil. Gorgeous waterfall here with that pixelation that Ex-Mortal's been playing with, which I think is just a huge hit with everybody. That looks like it's sold out. Another cool work, Slip. We might have seen this last episode, but I don't think so. So kind of playing around a little bit with composition. Ex-Mortal, so often using AI and video to glitch the AI. A very interesting trend. Acid Boy. Cool new generative psychedelic works. And here's another one, Louis Andre Gamma. Very nice piece here. So tons of interesting art here. Here's Elna Frederick as we start to wrap up. 104, as it's called, looks like Pikachu, edition of 10, and sold out. So works are selling here. Here's Mo SHIT, and Memories Remain, You Are Gone. It's kind of a different style, I think, and it looks like perhaps using AI, but I'm not positive, but it kind of looks like it. Interesting work from Mo. I think has used AI in the past. Yuri J picking that up for 65 Tez. So congrats to Mo. Here's Casey. I think that's how you pronounce it. Autumn Serenity by the Waterfall. That's also part of Sovereign's permanent collection. Very cool work here. Interesting original piece. As we continue, and here is Kanik Zapata, who of course I follow, with another wild work here. So pretty original artist, doing pretty well there on X. And here is Little Cakes with a beautiful work. Love the color in this one. And it almost has a music video feel to it. I've been saving this for October. It definitely has an October feel to it. So cool work from Little Cakes. And here is Martin Joe with a very cool drawing here. Kinky Bears, Kinktober, Got Coffee. So Martin Joe, of course, I follow Martin Joe, rad artist out of Argentina. And then there's some physicals, Gregorio Zanardi doing some very nice work here, as we were seeing earlier. New series, looks like with fish. And here another brilliant work. Look at that. So rad artwork from Gregorio Zanardi. That is your show, my friends. We did it. It's going to be sporadic. I may do a show on Monday. I may not. I'm enjoying the extra time right now. But I should have a show next Friday at the latest. So we shall see. Thank you for joining me. Until next time, take care.